My mic was muted. Good morning. If anybody's here, I thought I'd come up with a catchy intro phrase like good morning, friends, enemies, and allies, maybe. Good morning, Miss Kay Atwood. Always good to see you here. Well, I dropped something. Bear with me a moment. Or excuse my backside. Well, I had a picture. And I had it in my hand. Which reminds me of a line from a movie. Now I can't remember exactly. Oh, what is that movie? This bear's having a brain cloud. I can't think. There's the picture. So what did I drop? Well, so how are you, Kay? Pearl, Manhattan. Good God Almighty. Have you not been to bed yet? Well, I was turned around and bent over, and I was trying to find a photograph that I thought I dropped in the floor, but apparently I did not. This was it. I don't know if you'd be able to see this, but I'll show it to you. Let me lead up to it. This was a photograph I took on a motorcycle trip. Good morning, Dawn. Hot day, huh? Do you have air conditioning in Texas? I assume you do. That sounds stupid, but I know, for example, I think it's shaping up to be a hot day for Pearl, too, and I don't think she does. It's good to be back. I'll tell you that. Last week was not a lot of fun. I tried. I really, really tried to be here, and I couldn't. Yeah, what do you think about that, Dawn? I was hoping you'd be here today because I thought you might recognize that. It's one of my new flags. I'm going to get enough flags so I can do a version of Sheldon Cooper's Fun with Flags, I think. This picture was taken. I'm going to show you this picture. I started to tell about it. Oh, I bet. That's good. It's not supposed to be as hot here today, but the air quality is supposed to really be bad. There's the first one. I hadn't yawned all morning. See, this is a picture from my hometown, and I used to do. I don't know if I talked about this or not. I used to, when I belonged to the local club or motorcycle club, we used to take turns doing, leading rides to different places, and sometimes just, there and back or kind of thing. But I used to do one in the fall, and I used to call it my colorful history tour. And because I usually try to incorporate some kind of historical something. And it was colorful because it was in October usually. I did it in the fall of the year when the leaves are turning. So, this picture doesn't show the leaves much. I did go to my hometown. We had lunch there. This trip, we were all out. We were looking at the last 3 known covered bridges. Maybe I've already told this story, but this picture, if you can see it, Let me try to hold it steadier. What's significant about this is the mail pouch sign. You can't see anybody that's in it. That guy standing in front there is my buddy Philip. I see my motorcycle back there, but obviously I'm taking the picture, so I'm not in it. But that sign was, I'm sure a lot of you have seen those kind of signs usually painted on barns and rooftops of barns. And, they used to pay farmers they'd paint the farmer's barn if he'd let them put the sign on it. So a lot of times they'd let them do it. Because no farmer's going to turn down free paint. But that one was on the building downtown Jonesboro, still there. And there's some other significance to it. I can't remember, if it's the only one like downtown like that, or if it's or what. But anyway, they've refreshed it. Will you take care of yourself, Pearl? Good morning, Dave. I didn't see you pop in there. Anyway, that's just something from my hometown. My hometown is well, I know how that feels, Pearl. So don't overdo it. Just let it run its course. You'll be better off for it. Interesting thing I noticed this morning. I saw two messages either on here or on YouTube, where at least two streamers that we all know, Steve's World and Corey Meets World, both got COVID or have tested positive for COVID or have COVID and are working through it. So hopefully that won't go too far. I don't know if they're vaccinated or not. Good morning, Dean. You out chasing chickens already this morning? You've got a rooster coming around. You guys need to figure out where the hens are, Dean, and you can go out and pick up some free range chicken eggs. I mean, those would probably be pretty good eggs. Pearl. Now, I'm afraid it's not going to do that to you, Pearl, regardless of what you may have heard. All zombie apocalypse rumors are far-fetched and so far not based on any fact, but not based on facts. Not on facts based in, how's that go? Facts not based in evidence. I'm not a big zombie watching kind of person. My wife is. She likes pretty much all things zombie. Well, up within reason. I've learned a lot about zombies by hanging out with her, though, over the years. I didn't know. Sorry about the pouring if it's loud, but I gotta have my coffee. You got the umbrella cord vaccine. I don't know about what do you mean by that. Explain that to me, Lucy. Kay, are you out there? I never did see you say hi. Yeah, some movies show zombies as being somewhat intelligent, as in they're seeking out people to eat their brains, but my wife says that they really aren't. They just wander aimlessly. Oh, well, then I probably ain't not familiar with that then, Pearl. I have not seen the movie Resident Evil. There you are. I'm good. I'm much better than I was last week. I had interesting few days there where I wasn't quite sure which end was up. I've not been that sick in a while, but it was kind of weird. I wasn't coughing. It wasn't respiratory. Honestly, wasn't sick in my stomach, although I didn't feel like eating much. But I ran a fever. But it was what's the word that kept ponging back and forth from low to high, and I would wake up. And it started out whatever Thursday or whatever day I started getting sick. I woke up freezing. I mean, really cold. Could not get warm. Tried to go to the bathroom and was shaking almost uncontrollably. In fact, Brenda had to wake Brenda up to let her help me back to bed. And then I would go just the opposite. My temperature would go up to about right at 100, and I would wake up in a cold, in a sweat. And of course, if I didn't get dried off and stay warm, then I'd go to the opposite and I'd be shivering again. But I was shivering. My body was shaking like hypothermia, where your body goes into uncontrollable shakes trying to warm itself up, and that's kind of like how I felt. And it happened several times over the course of hours. It happened, and then it would fade off. I'd do the other thing, and I called my doctor, who, bless her heart, she was out of town. In fact, she was out of the country. She was out having fun scuba diving somewhere, but she called me back. I'll have to give her credit for that. She did contact me, and we talked on the phone several times. And fortunately, by Sunday morning, it was starting to. I was not feeling well, but I wasn't having the shakes anymore, and my fever quit going up quite as high. Many of you may be in the same boat as I am. I used to think I was unusual. For many years, my standard normal temperature was not 98.6. In fact, for a long time, it was 97.6 or 97.4. Now I hear that as you get older, that happens, but mine's been that way since I was in my middle ages. Maybe I'm still middle aged, but I'd like to think I am anyway. But probably in my 30s or 40s, my temperature started being lower than normal. So anytime it gets up over 98, or in the normal range for most people, I start to feel somewhat ill. But this time it was, it was hovering right around 100 and bouncing. Really strange. I don't know. I don't know what else to call it. And I had an infection. It started out with a toothache. I had broken another tooth back of my mouth, and it had gotten infected before I got to the dentist, naturally. So it was giving me the devil, and pain was pretty extreme. So I had gone on antibiotics, but they weren't anything serious antibiotics. I mean, they were right here they say it. Cephalex or something like that. And I've had that before and it never bothered me, so I don't think it was that. Who knows, maybe. And I actually thought maybe I was coming down with COVID. And but like I said, there was no respiratory, and the temperature never cracked 100 that I saw. My wife Brenda was checking it fairly regularly, and I checked it a few times too, just to see. But it never seemed to break 100. It would get to 100 and bounce back down. It seemed like it was really strange. But she wanted me, if it persisted, she wanted me to go to the emergency room since she wasn't in town, and so it broke, and I started feeling better. But it's taken me several days to really get back on my game. And now Brenda's not feeling well, so I'm hoping she doesn't have the same thing I had, or if it is, I hope it's not as bad. She hasn't had the fevers and the shakes and all that, but she has had has had a headache, which I also had. Forgot about that. Anyway, I'm hogging up all the air in the room here. You guys. So what else is going on besides zombies? Pearl, we have to talk. We have to talk about zombies. I have this. Before I retired, I had this young guy that had just started with us, and he was a lot of fun. But we were out on the boat some, and we got the topic of zombies came up. So he and I did some research, and we were trying to figure out if the zombie apocalypse hits, where would you be safe at? Hey, Cherie. Good morning, ma'am. I'm glad to see you. Well, don't make yourself late for work or anything. Don't get in trouble, but I'm glad to see you. I'm doing much better. Thank you, Cherie. I hope you are as well. I haven't had anything to eat this morning yet. Well, 2 crackers, which Teddy wanted to fight me over. Enough talk about that, Kay. Any other cat people in here? Did your cats eat saltine crackers? Because my cat absolutely loves saltine crackers. Teddy does. Nobody else. He will actually, I have seen him climb up on the shelf and literally pull a pack of crackers out of the box to get down on the floor so he can have a saltine cracker, and he will get them open. Of course, not very, he doesn't do it very neatly, but he absolutely loves saltine crackers. I don't know why. Well, what are you going to have for a snack, Cherie? I might want to share it with you. Anyway, I was telling some story. Oh, zombies. Yeah, zombies. So we were out on the boat one day doing our thing, and we had time for some conversation, or maybe we were sitting and eating lunch under a tree somewhere. But we were trying to figure out where would you go. Now his wife was kind of into zombies. He was kind of like me. He didn't really watch zombie shows. Well, yogurt's good. Yogurt's good for you. And one of the places we thought might be a houseboat, out on the water, out in deep water, in the middle of the reservoir, middle of the lake somewhere where they could, or a river, maybe a river. Actually, we decided a river might be best, and I'll explain that in a moment. But because zombies can't swim, but since they're not alive, they could technically they could probably walk under the water. So because they could walk under the water, in order for it to be really safe on the houseboat, we decided it'd be better to have, like a river current, so that the river current would just wash them on downstream. And at that point, we decided that a houseboat on a river would probably be the safest place to be during the zombie apocalypse. Any opinions? I'm not a zombie expert, so I may be totally wrong on that. But that was our thought. That's what we came up with out on the boat. In case anybody doesn't know, not Kay, but Don mentioned the flag behind me. That is the flag of Tennessee. And while I can't remember what all the colors mean, I do know what the 3 stars mean. Can you see the 3 stars in the middle? That's for the 3 grand divisions of the state of Tennessee. You got East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and West Tennessee. And in the case of Tennessee, because it's such an elongated state, that actually means something, because in the east, you've got the ridges and valleys and the mountains and the Appalachians. In the center, we have Cumberland Plateau and the Great Basin of Nashville. And then in the West Tennessee, you've got the plains basically that flatten out and run down to the Mississippi River. So it is 3 different places geologically and geographically. That's probably obvious, but I hope you do too, Cherie. I hope they're not working you too hard, and hopefully you get off soon and get to go home and enjoy your day. Kay, I'm not sure that's how it works. You explain to him that it may not work. I personally don't think it will. I'd stake him out in the yard. I have to wonder if he's not been vaccinated. If he hasn't, then, I'm not going to get ugly about that this morning. I don't want to start an argument. I do have strong feelings about it, but I won't go there. You're a zombie rower, maybe lover, or maybe ROWR is a word, Pearl. You can set me straight if it is. I apologize. Like I said, I don't know anything about zombies to speak of. I get all my information from above, and that's, in this case, that's Brenda. She's been watching zombie movies all her life, so one of her favorites is still the original, or one of the. I don't know. I guess it was the original, the Night of the Living Dead. Was that the first zombie movie? Of course, I guess in some ways you could almost call a lot of them, the Mummy was sort of a zombie. I don't know if he ate people's brains, and I guess he didn't. If he bit you, I guess you didn't become a mummy. That's one thing about zombies. Well, good for her, Kay. Maybe she worked on him too. Maybe she brought it home one night and said, "Hold still." Some of the newer zombie movies, I've watched a little bit of some with her, and my God, they're crazy. I mean, they're really really out there crazy. You know what, Kay, Brenda liked that too. That was an interesting. I have to admit that was an interesting zombie movie idea. Somebody came up with a good concept there. She watched that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kate. Weren't they like the main characters? At least a couple of them were uh, like medical examiners, coroners, but they ate they ate brains of the dead and did some. I can't remember how else they preserved the zombies, or did something like that. I asked my wife one time. I said, "Why do zombies chase people, live people, or try to get? They could eat another zombie." But she said, "Well, would you want to eat rotten flesh?" And I thought about that. No, I wouldn't. But why would they care? Yeah, Pearl, I get some of that, and the little man in me doesn't like shots either. I'll tell you that right now. In fact, I used to pass out about every time I got a shot. That's no joke. As an adult, not a kid. Uh, I used to have a doctor that would always make me sit in the recline on her bed, her exam table, until she was sure I wasn't going to fall out in the waiting room. One time she told me, she said, "You're bad for business." And she was a shot doctor. Now she believed that penicillin would about cure anything. Okay, I knew it was something like that, Kay. It was kind of a cute show. I mean, I said I'm not a zombie person, but I watched that a little bit with her. Tommy. I don't know if I know that. I don't know if I know that, Kay. Are you talking about Tommy, the pinball wizard, Tommy? Shazam! Indeed, I would say the same thing. Is that the handsome and elegant James Ryan? So I've heard. Now, personally, I think he's just kind of average looking, but Oh my God, Pearl! It's a week from Wednesday. Good for you. Congratulations. Oh, I thought I'd seen it, Pearl, but I don't remember that. Maybe I haven't. I listen to the music a lot. Tommy, the original Tommy from the Who, or is it Who or Guess Who? It's the Who, right? We used to listen to that in the dark room a lot. It was a 2 album set, and it had the Philharmonic. I think the London Philharmonic played in it, and I don't know who all else, but it was great. Some great music. That's long before Pinball Wizard came along, and Elton John and some of that stuff. I haven't listened to that in a long time. I should. That was the kind of thing we listened to. That my music tastes were really different than most of my peers at that age in high school and whatnot, because I was exposed to a whole different kind of music. Bear with me just a second, folks. My nose is running like a sugar tree. Now I'm back. Oh, well, that makes sense. It'd be during Acid Queen, yeah. Yeah, that would be a bad. That would be a bad lick. I don't remember that. Maybe I've not seen the original movie. Actually, I listen to the music a lot, but James, I'm proud and honored to see you in the chat, buddy. I've missed you. But you've been here, there, and yonder, and gone and busy. So, well, Pearl, I hate that it traumatized you. Listening to the music didn't traumatize me, so I guess I got to miss that part. I do remember the song now. Well, James, you're not going to get maple sugar out there. I'm afraid you'll have to order it. Uh, that'd be hard to give up. But you knew what I meant. You prefer Pink Floyd. Well, I might prefer them too overall, but Tommy was a favorite. I have to admit, I like that album. Well, say hi to friends and fellows in Arizona who you may or may not be with at the moment. I'll assume you are, but so James knew what I meant by saying my nose was running like a sugar tree. Is that a? I may get into a conversation here about colloquialisms or sayings from your hometown. I mean, is that something any of you have said where you're from? South Carolina, New York. Well, James knew Pearl. Well, you're from down south too originally. That was just something I grew up hearing. My mom always said that, I guess. And people don't think about it, but they used to sugar down here some in the mountains at least. Well, that's true, James. It is just that. Well, you and Pearl are about the same. You're on the same time schedule now, I think. You never heard that, Kay, down where you are. So maybe that is an East Tennessee saying, man. What about you, Dawn? If you're still in here, did you hear that growing up at all? You grew up on the plateau. Well, that's what I was wondering, Pearl. But maybe they don't do the time change thing. Maybe that's the difference. So, which is it, James? Are you in Pacific time there, or are you in Mountain time? I'm trying to think where that line is. I could pull up a map and figure it out, but you know, Well, then that probably makes sense, Pearl. That's probably it. I don't know how I feel about that time thing. I don't know if I hope they quit doing the change or not. I guess once we got used to it again, I'd be fine. The fall one always bothered me more, but the spring one used to love. There was a time when my mother would send me a get well card on the day the time changed because I didn't like it so much, the fall one, because it made it get dark early. Ah, one of those states. Confusing. No, that's not confusing. What's confusing used to be Indiana. I never 30 years ago, I used to go to Indiana at least a couple times a year to do uh, historic reenactments. I guess would be the correct term. And we would, of course, cross somewhere along in there. You cross into Central Time, going up Kentucky and across. But then it changes back because the line's really crooked up there. It goes to the west and then goes up. It's really strange. I thought they always just followed longitude lines, but they don't. They're man-made. Well, that is longitude and latitude is too, but woohoo. Anyway, up there for a long time, they would actually decide whether they were going to go eastern or daylight savings or not by the town or the county, and you could cross in. There was a town up there where the town was split. So if you lived on one side of town, you were in Eastern time, and if you or daylight savings or whatever, if you went to the other side, you were not. So you had to get up an hour early on one side of town to get to the other side of town on time. It was just confusing. Well, that makes sense, Pearl. I don't know what we're getting here now. We're already on the downslope, so I don't know how many hours a day. But it's not getting dark here right now until about 9-ish, almost 9:30. Time it gets really dark. But you live far enough to the north, that makes a big difference. One thing I used to hate about Central Time was we lived in Nashville, and it was right on the kind of on the eastern edge of Central. So when time changed in the fall and it got dark earlier, it got really dark early out there because at 4:00, 4:30, I'd be coming home from work and it would already be dark. I hated that. Quiet in the chat. Let's see. Obviously colloquialisms, local sayings, and that sort of thing didn't pick up there. Didn't nobody picked up on that much. Only Kay had never heard of your nose running like sugar tree. What else can I say about that? I don't remember. I haven't taken a week off. Oh, me too, Kay. I used to. I didn't mind going to work as bad in the dark, and maybe that's because I used to get up really early to go to work anyway, so it was dark regardless. But I used to hate coming home in the dark. That was depressing to me. Um, but that's just how it was. That was the one thing about Central Time I didn't really like. I liked the fact that I could watch the 10 o'clock news and not and go to bed at 10:30 or by 11. instead of having to stay up here if I wanted to till 11 to watch the news at night. And I'm not sure why watching the late night news was that important to begin with. Oh, well, you could even watch Johnny Carson or something back then if I lived down there and still get in bed at a halfway decent hour. My problem when I was in Nashville is I worked so much undertime, which was our expression for going in early and working, 10 or 12 hours a day. Putting overtime in the mornings was I'd be at work at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and then work till, the opposite 12 hours later a lot of times. So either way, I was getting home late. I worked till 7 a lot, but I also went in early a lot. So it was almost like coal mine, you go in the morning. A friend of mine's dad, he told me about his dad working in the coal fields in Kentucky when he was young. He said for a year, he didn't see the sun. He really didn't see the sun because he went in the mines before dark and came out after dark, and he was in the mines all day long. And, but that was then. They probably do that now too. So what else is going on, James? What else is going on in your nomadic life at this point? Yeah, probably not nomadic, but any more Disneyland or world trips planned? I know Pearl's getting ready to go to Disney World. That's fantastic. I can't wait to hear all about that. Problem with let me see. I'll just pop this up because I can do this. Problem with West Coast time zones, everything live is scheduled. Oh, yeah, I know. So you get reruns of things on air at prime time here. Lost Coast, Past Coast. That's true. I'm sure that is kind of bad. You get late run news and late run everything, which was something that was coming up. That was an issue with election returns and things, and that's why a lot of stations, some networks at least back east today, don't release news predictions or election predictions until California at least closes their polls so they don't affect election returns and things. That's because back here they cut off 3 hours before they do out there. We're going to Disneyland next weekend. Back to Walt Disney World in October and November. Excellent. I would like to say I have one planned for them, but we don't. I think I'm going to wait till, physically, I'm still limited enough that I'm not sure I'd have a really good time, but I think I'm going to wait until after things settle down. October will be I'd love to go to see the early days of the celebration stuff, but I think I'm going to wait till after the new year till things kind of see if they get back somewhat to normal. Well, that sounds like fun, Pearl. Sounds to me like you're about ready to go then. A sun hat probably be a good option. I think that'd be much better than ears in that regard, unless you find the big sun hat with ears on it. I do. I have seen those. That's a good point, Kay. We used to go August, there was a time when August used to be a discounted time to go to Disney. I don't think there is such a thing today, but if you belong to the Disney, I don't know what they call that back then. There was a Disney, not vacation club, obviously. That's something entirely different. But if you belong to that Disney World fan club or Disney Mickey Mouse fan club, I don't know, whatever they called it, you get a list of opportune dates and times and when the best times to go, and when things were discounted, when they weren't, when things were on special seasonal or holiday rates. And August used to be a discount period. Oh, really, Kay? I've not seen that. That's a good idea. You could put those on anything, probably. As long as you don't have a steel plate in your head, then you'd be like Cousin Eddie. You might, every time you put your ears on, you might pee your pants. Yeah, magnetic ears would be handy because you could put those on anything you wanted to. Okay, I hope somebody laughed about the Cousin Eddie joke. Surely most of you have seen Christmas Vacation. If you haven't, you're missing something. You know, Cousin Eddie they changed his to plastic because every time his wife turned on the microwave, he peed his pants. But the plastic one was okay. It didn't do that, but it kind of messed up the part in his hair. You know, stuff that sticks in my brain. Well, James, we probably need to talk, but maybe we need to talk later. But are you still officially working? I mean, are you able to work from out there now to do your same stuff? Maybe travel to New York occasionally, or have you left New York? Yeah, they were good. I think Christmas Vacation was my favorite, but maybe that's just because I like Christmas. But oh, Pearl, it started out warmer than that here this morning, I think. But you know that. I used to hate going to work when it was 6 o'clock and it'd already be 72 or something, you know, where it never got below 72 because you knew you were in trouble. By the middle of the afternoon, it was roasting. 82. Let's see what it is here, what they're saying it is here right now. 88. So while I feel for you, Pearl, I'm not going to play any sad music but it's not. 88. It wasn't supposed to get that hot today. They said maybe tomorrow. We're supposed to have some cooler air coming in, so maybe that's tomorrow. This is the part of the living, even in the near south, that I don't enjoy, and since it's gotten warm, I don't care what name it has gotten warmer. I truly believe that it's not. Summers here are just miserable. Sometimes I almost think they're worse in Florida. The difference here in Florida is the sun itself is more intense in Florida. You feel it on your skin more, I think. But the humidity and the way it hangs in the air up here is just, I think, worse in Florida because Florida has, I wouldn't say a perpetual breeze off the ocean, but it does certainly affect that. Yeah, Pearl, I saw that on the news. That's why I was wondering about that earlier. I saw where you guys were going to be hot again this weekend. Maybe not as hot as the last one, but still way hotter than normal. No, I don't blame you, Pearl. I've thought about moving further north a few times rather than south. Now that I'm getting older, I don't know, but there was certainly a time when I did. I wanted to move to Alaska for a long, long time. I figured I probably would have survived no heat waves until I died, at least that way. Oh my God, Pearl, you guys haven't had rain either? I didn't realize that. I didn't know you guys were going totally without. I mean, that's really unusual for you. I mean, I knew there had been fires up that way, and Oregon has had a lot of fires, but I didn't realize you weren't getting the rain. Your side of the mountains usually gets the rain, right? I mean, generally speaking. Yeah, I didn't see what our humidity was this morning, or I could probably tell you. It already feels like 94. I mean, 80. No, it says 84. Well, this says 79, so maybe it's not. Maybe that's good. Maybe it's not as hot. Where that 88 came from? Not much chance of rain for us today. 0. But there is a big old air quality alert, so I guess I'll stay indoors most of the day. 74% humidity right now. What that says. James, how are you adapting to that Arizona dry heat? Because it's a dry heat, you know. And a dry cool or cold. Only thing you need to next thing, Pearl, will be some new earthquakes. Some more volcanoes will wake up. Like, oh shoot, what was the big one? St. Helens. Nobody really wants that again. I still have trouble. Okay, Pearl. Well, thank you, Pearl. You go rest and take it easy. I understand not being able to set up too long. I have that problem too. That's still one of my big issues is being able to set up for great length of time. It gets pretty painful. Yeah, all those are sleeping volcanoes. I don't know if any of them are actually considered extinct. Hugs to you, Pearl. You have a good rest today. Get some rest. Don't let that thing, just let it run its course and try not to work too hard. I know you can't help some of it. James Ryan. Oh no, they're not doing it. I started to say you'd fit right in. You need to go to Disneyland when they're dancing at the. Well, I can't remember which pavilion it is, but they do the swing and stuff dancing there on weekends. They did before COVID. I don't know when I don't think they've started that back yet. But I could see you fitting right in there. All dapper and out there cutting a rug. I think you'd fit right in for that. I could be wrong. I got a new mug since I've been on, and I thought I couldn't find it. I was going to show it. I've been wanting one of these for a while. I thought my wife's about to kill me. I promise no more coffee paraphernalia for a while. But I got this cup, and it's a dated Death Wish cup, and I hadn't been able to get one. I don't know if it's focused well enough. If you see, it says 2021. And it is a whopper of a mug, and it's hand thrown. The Deneen Pottery Company, and each one is hand thrown. So I think that's pretty cool. So they're a little bit more pricey than some, but I figured you would, James. I could definitely see you out there cutting a rug. In fact, I hope to see you doing that someday if they restart that. I'd like to see you get out there and do that very thing. I've never been a dancer, so I probably won't be able to dance when I get healed up either. Let's see. I'm trying to find something else I've been working on here. Hang on. Probably not a great deal of interest to most folks, but Oh, I've been working on a cane, building myself a cane, but I came to a screeching halt the other day because it cracked my. I was wanting to make it out of bamboo, excuse me, and I cracked it. So guess I'm gonna have to go with something else. Either that, or I'm gonna have to figure out a way to bind it. I put my. Well, it's my own fault. I tried to have a handle or cane topper I want to put on, and it's brass, and so I figured, well, it'd be easier to make it fit in the wood of the bamboo, and I guess I got it too thin, so that was a bummer. I've been trying to figure out, what do you call bamboo? Is it a wood, or is it? I mean, technically, bamboo is not a tree. I mean, even though it gets umpteen feet tall and big around as your arm, it's grass. So I don't know if you call. I mean, I've always heard it called bamboo wood. They make bamboo wood fly rods. I have a longbow that's made out of bamboo, or at least the heart of it is bamboo. I made for me from the James will remember this Kmart, the guy who played not the guy who played Robin Hood. He did the archery for Robin Hood. Howard. Oh, what was his name? I got to look him up now. He did the actual shooting for the Robin Hood movies early on. Who did the archery? Lars Anderson. Oh, he's a different guy. He did the stuff for Legolas. That's interesting. I did not know that. They're talking about all the new Howard Hill. Howard Hill was the archer in the old Robin Hood movies. Errol Flynn played Robin Hood. I don't know who else did, but a lot of the archery was actually done by Howard Hill, who was famous for his shooting skills and his act, and that he was truly an archer, and he had a company that actually made handmade bows. I think they sold arrow materials. They may have actually sold arrows too, because used to be the best material for arrows came out of the Northwest Pearls part of the country. It was Western cedar, and which mostly comes from up that way. And of course, yew trees were what most English longbows were made out of, and that came out of Wales and that part of the world. I guess I don't know where else they got yew back then, but the yew actually grows in the Northwest, so they made it out of that too. But they still used, but bamboo makes some really good, strong bow material. So I have a Howard Hill. I have a custom handmade Howard Hill bow with my name on it that I ordered years ago. I like it. I shot it a lot. It's a really good shooting bow. I like to shoot longbows because they were much lighter than the new conventional compound bows that people shoot today. And while I will give a lot of people that shoot compound bows credit for being good archers, there's a lot of things about a compound bow that make them easier to shoot. And some of those things I'm not that keen on. But today, the hot lick today, it was aluminum shafts, have been around for years. I know today they shoot a lot of graphite arrows, which are small diameter, and they really zing out there, but they don't have a lot of weight to them. So if I could get back into it, I'd still shoot wooden arrows if I could. Okay, I'm taking up most of the air again. So somebody else jump in there with a topic. Let's. What do you want to talk about this morning? Did I show? I don't know who's in here who was here last time. Uh, I put together a few slides about some things I did growing up. Did I put those in here? Not necessarily what I did, but things I felt like influenced my life. I used to shoot a lot in my backyard, and my girls like to shoot. My oldest daughter actually liked to shoot. I actually rue the fact that I didn't take her shooting more often. She liked to shoot the bow, and I actually bought her a bow or two over time, and I used to collected old bows, and I still have a few here in my closet that date back to the 60s, 50s, and 60s, which isn't old, but my Howard Hill bow was actually made in the 80s. That's when I bought it, so it's not old. Hi, Tina. Always watching or listening, at least in this case. That's interesting, Kay. There's actually somewhat of a renaissance in people shooting what are known as recurve bows and long bows. So that's the kind of thing that Howard Hill shot long bows. Fred Bear was famous for shooting in his own recurve bows. But the most common thing you see today are still compound bows, what I used to call wheel bows. You have an advantage of compound leverage or pulleys to help make it easier to shoot. And technically you still should have to practice and do that. I'm afraid some people think it's too easy sometimes and don't practice as much as they should. That's a whole nother topic. I worked with a group for years that tried to start a bow hunters education program in this state so that they have hunter education programs now that you have to take to get a hunting license. So in a lot of states, and Tennessee does, most states do that now, I think. But we tried to get them to do an archery, same thing with archery, and we could never get enough support to make it happen. So people do teach classes or did, and I got involved in that, but it never happened that I know of. If it does today, I'm not aware of it, but I think should have. I think people need to know. It's bothersome to me sometimes when I know that people can just walk into a place, pick up a weapon, be it a rifle or a longbow or a bow, and then just go out hunting and not know anything about what they're doing. At least with rifle hunting, at least you have to go through some education class. Well, you've got some interesting neighbors, Tina, or Kay. Tina, you got to get caught up on all the news. Brother James is not even he's in a foreign land now. Could you hit anything with a handheld crossbow, Kay? Just curious. I've always thought they were a little bit interesting. I always thought crossbows were kind of neat, but people started hunting with them, and I'm not that crazy about that. I think they're a little bit too easy to call. The modern crossbows are just more almost like shooting a rifle. You're just shooting an arrow instead of a bullet, but they just shoot just about as well within a certain range. I'd like to know more about this white neighbor that throws knives, though. That's interesting. Who does she throw them at? I wouldn't want to be her husband. Well, Tina, so am I for the most part. I just happen to know a little bit more about a few things, but I'm way behind. Being sick week before last and the toothache just kept me offline, and I'm still not back on full speed. I've been on a few times just for short periods in the last week or so, but I'm really missing out on things. I got to get back. Um, I got to get back up to speed on a lot of this. Like I said earlier, I was not, maybe nobody was aware, but I got two notes, or I saw two notes today come out. One for Steve of Steve's World, and Corey of Corey Meets World, and they're both in COVID quarantine. So I don't know if that means they've tested positive or if they've actually. Well, I think Corey actually has COVID. I'm not sure about Steve. Hey, John, good to see you, buddy. Are the fish biting today? That would be fun, James. Teeny, I don't know if you've ever been out that way or not, but the desert is I love I like the desert. I love the desert for its own things. It's beautiful after a rain. I don't know if you've got to see that, James. Probably not the way the weather. Well, I don't know. They've had monsoons, but hey, Simon. But when I go out to New Mexico, you get a little rain sometimes, certain times of year, and man, the desert would just pop. All the flowers bloom real quick. The desert plants are adapted to that, so if they get any water or rain at all, they'll bloom real quick to get, so they can be pollinated. And of course, the bugs and the bees and all kinds of things are out there doing their pollination work. But the desert can just turn into go from brown to bright reds and yellows. I mean, it's gorgeous. I really like that part of the desert. I love New Mexico. I've been out there a few times, and I like the fact that you can go from high mountains to, well, high desert. Really, it's not that low, but no fish up early with Pete's Bay. Oh, okay. Wow, they're playing baseball this early. I'm actually surprised about that. Of course, it's not as early now. It's 11 o'clock. But um, who's playing today, John? Philmont, yes, sir. That's what got me started out there. If you're not aware, Philmont is the official, was in my day. John, well, no, John's not as old as me, but Philmont used to be the official, one of the 2 or 3 official Boy Scout adventure ranches, and to go to Philmont was a major thing for me growing up, and I got to go when I was 15, and so I got to see and witness the desert and the high country all in kind of in one visit, and I was stuck. I mean, I was hooked, and I've loved it ever since. Oh, okay. Well, I've been watching the Olympics, but I didn't have the baseball game on, as hence my name, Olympics Bear. I'm a big Olympics fan. I prefer the winter games, but I do watch all the pretty much watch all the summer games too. I don't like track and field so much, but then again, track and field is kind of a pure Olympic kind of thing, probably more so than a lot of the others. And one thing I do like about track and fields, it's all based on, real results, time and stuff. There's no judging, which I'll have to admit, sometimes I'm not sure about judging events, but I'm not sure everybody can be that unbiased. But when you're running a 100-yard dash or playing baseball and it's a 5-1 score, I watched I watched the women's softball tournament. It was heartbroken that, for them to lose to Japan again. So I was really pulling for them. Did you watch softball too, John? Any of the softball games? In the back. I'm gonna see if I can. Bear with me just a moment. Oh, Hmm. Well, I can't find the baseball game. But I've always been fascinated by the Olympics. I think it's amazing that, for the most part, all these countries can come together, and you get to see athletes interact with each other, and by and large, without the political and physical and what's the right word? Um, can't think of the word. Political boundaries, I just of countries and things that we do otherwise in everyday life. It seems. John, that's an interesting game. That's a game wasn't ever so familiar with. In fact, they're playing it behind me right now, and when somebody says handball to me, I think of people on a court with a ball, and you're hitting it against the wall with your hand. Next game is Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern. Okay, so you were up early watching it. Who won, John? I'll find out eventually, but one of the pitchers for the softball team was Monica Abbott for the women, and she played softball here at the University of Tennessee here where I live and where I went to school. So I'm always hot damn, that's good. So I like to see her pitch. I don't know, she may be by the time the Olympics roll around again, she may be too old. But man, can she sling a softball? Both of the U.S. pitchers were lights out for the most part, but the Japanese are always good. Sad part about that was for the Americans, was the Japanese beat them. I think it's 2008 was the last time they played softball in the Olympics until this year. And I believe Japan beat the U.S. team then, so they were really hoping to get revenge, if you will, and win. So love you too, James. You take care, brother. Let's talk soon. We need to catch up some. And as you know, I'm usually here, so I'm just about always available. But you take care of the day and say hi to everybody out there, and let them know we're all thinking about you guys. And if you're on the road, if you actually are on the road, be safe. Talk to you soon. John, what year were you at Philmont? I think you've told me, but I can't remember. I was there in 72. Well, there's Monarch Moments. I'm going to assume that's Mr. Garrett. Hey, what are you doing on this morning? Aren't you still in Los Angeles area? Oh, well, not too much behind me then. 76. Wow, that's the bicentennial year. That's did they do anything special for that you recall? Nose is itching. I must be going to have company. That's another thing in East Tennessee we say. If your nose itches, you're going to have company. Are you on the road today, Garrett? Are you back? Are you I did not realize you guys were still out there or still down there. And I did not realize last night that you were live. I saw a little bit of your stream and hit the like button, but I didn't. I've got to catch up. For some reason I thought you guys had already headed home. Headed home today. Well, so I don't forget later, safe travels. Good luck on your way home. I'm going to have to go see who's at the door. My nose is itching. They may already be here. Okay. Oh, I meant to. I would have watched you more. I'll have to go back and try to catch some replay because I didn't. Like I said, I didn't realize you guys were. Okay, where am I at here? My head feels crooked. I didn't realize you guys were still down there. I had watched you do the resort tour, I guess, last Sunday or first of the week, and I thought maybe you were getting ready to go home after that, but you didn't. So good for you guys. Hopefully everybody has had a good time. I'm sure I'm going to say hopefully worn out from having a good time, but that may not be the case. Ah, there's one. Kay and I have one that we both know together. How about you? How about you, Garrett? We're talking about sayings and colloquialisms and things that people say where you're from that may or may not be said in other parts of the country. I just mentioned my nose was itching, so must be going to have company. Now that's something that I grew up hearing back here, but maybe you had something like that. You're ready to go home. I bet you are. Sometimes even going to the happiest place on earth, when it comes time to go home, it's time to go home. Period. I mean, you just got to be there. Go back, sleep in your own bed, kind of thing. Anyway, that's I'm sure you are. Like I said, sleeping in your own bed sometimes is just feels good for some reason, even if it's not as good a bed. That makes any sense. I'm hoping to get down to the motorcycle tea room this coming week, if everybody feels, if we're back up to feeling healthy again, and I can get down there. I'm planning on. Yeah, if that going back to work part kind of, I never did get near as excited about that as I did sleeping in my own bed or getting to see my pets. I mean, I do admit that we used to miss our pets, but our dogs, there were times when we used to take our dogs with us to Disney World. We'd put them in the kennel down there, and we got to go see them every day, a couple of times a day, if we had time. I mean, we tried to always go see them at least once a day, and they recommended that. But I don't know how they handle that now. If you're in a campground, there's some dog friendly, pet friendly areas, but it's not like we can take our herd of cats down there. For one thing, they don't travel well. Our cats don't like to go anywhere. If they go anywhere, they think it's the vet, so they don't want to go. It's funny how they always seem to know it's the vet. Even Teddy, who's sound asleep over here. I had somebody I missed today, Miss Carol. Has anybody seen her lately? Has she been everybody okay up in Michigan? Because I haven't been around, so I don't know if people have been under the weather. John, is there any, hopefully you're still here. You and I have that in common, going to Philmont and the Scouts, and I don't know. I think you said you were an Eagle Scout too. But was there one thing about going to Philmont that stuck with you? Was there one thing in particular that you really remember, or that really hit you as a fun thing to do? I know a couple of things that really stick out in my mind. Was, of course, there was a lot of hiking and cooking outdoors and that kind of stuff. But One of the things I really remember doing was rock climbing. We got to do a little rock climbing and rappelling one day near the end of our trip, and I enjoyed that. And we came back. A couple of us came home from out there wanting to get into rock climbing here. And unfortunately, back then, we couldn't really find the equipment we needed. She probably is, Garrett. I just, hopefully she's okay. She usually pops in for a few minutes somewhere along the way. And I haven't talked to her in a week or so. So, yeah. Another thing I remember doing was climbing to the top of Mount Baldy, which may not be that significant, but it was a 12,000-foot peak. If I recall correctly, Baldy's the highest peak within the Philmont area ranch, or I guess they still call it a ranch. Excuse me. But we went to the top of that, which was really interesting because this was June, late June, early July, I believe. I need to recheck those dates, but because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was 1st of June. I thought it was near the 4th of July when we came home, though. Yeah, we did too. And we went into a gold mine on Mount Baldy a little ways. We went back in the cave, back in the mine. They didn't take us too far, of course, but they took us back in there. It was flooded, which is kind of odd. We were up on the side of a mountain, which is covered in rock. I mean, the whole top of that mountain is pretty much talus slopes. And we went back in there, and the guides or wranglers or whatever who took us in there, we got back in there. We didn't go that far in. I'm sure there was a safety issue, but they stopped us and they started talking to us about different things. The last thing we had to do was go out, at least part way out in the dark. They wanted to show us what it was like to work back there when all the lights went out and you had to get out of the tunnel. So you held on to the guy in front of you and he led the way. Oh yes, they taught us all about making bear bait, hanging up bear bags. That was the first day on the trip. We had to learn that. And do you remember them saying anything about don't Tetrox the bears? Tetrox was a soap that we used back then to do your dishes. It was, to make sure nobody got dysentery and that sort of thing. You had to make sure your eating gear was always clean, but they gave you this, I assume, biodegradable soap. It's called Tetrox. And they said invariably somebody leaves out the Tetrox and the bears get into it, because the bears would get into anything that had an odor, any kind of scent to it at all. And they would eat that Tetrox soap, and then, of course, that wasn't good for their, let's say it wasn't good for their stomachs. So you had an unhappy bear. So they had to make sure nobody Tetrox the bears. Okay, Don, will you be safe going out and getting the granddaughters and whatever kind of scheme you've got planned? Good luck. Hope you have a good day. Did you ever have any encounters with bears while you were out there, John? Because we did. The bears out there. That was the first place I ever did bear bags, and of course there was a good reason for it. The bears learn quickly, as I know now, that where the food is, and they literally would get into, like I said, anything that had a scent. So you had to always remember when you shut down the camp at night to go to bed, and after dinner and that sort, after you ate, and that here plugged up. Make sure everything, and I mean everything, was in the bear bag. Deodorant, if you had any soap, any kind of snacks, trail mix, gorp as they called it out there at that time. anything you had that was food items, and then pretty much anything else you had if it had a scent, you had to go in the bear bag and go up in the tree, and the bear bag had to be basically suspended between two trees because they developed what they call the kamikaze bear out there, who would climb one tree to jump off to try to grab the bear bait. So you had to make sure it was 10 or 12 feet between trees and at least 10 or 12 feet off the ground so the bears couldn't get to it. It was quite the thing. We were in our next to the last camp, John. We were up near the Tooth of Time. We were on the back side of the Tooth of Time. I got to find my map. But anyway, we were going to cross that gap around the Tooth of Time there and drop back down into base camp the next day for finish up our backpacking trip. But we were up there, and that particular campground, I guess, was fairly heavily used either for crews going out or crews coming in. And there were a fair bit of bear traffic there. So that early that evening, we had a couple of small bears that had come near the camp and they'd run off basically. But during the night, they came back, and one of our guys, the last night we were on the trail, he decided to take the Kool-Aid jug in with him, and that's, you kind of had Kool-Aid to drink all the time. So he had a little bit of Kool-Aid left in the jug, so he took it in his tent to finish it off. Well, during the night, the bear came for the Kool-Aid and literally grabbed his, "Hey, Carol, good to see you. I was just talking about you. Is that why you're here? Was your ears burning?" There's another one. Have you heard that, Kay? But the bear found the jug and ripped it to pieces. The jug was full of teeth marks and claw marks. But on top of that, he grabbed a hold of the kid's sleeping bag and drug him partway out of the tent. And nobody believed him at first. He said, "A bear drugged me out." He was a pretty laid back kid. But there were teeth marks in the bottom of his sleeping bag, so he did seriously pull his sleeping bag out. You're walking back from the pharmacy. Well, good for you, I guess. Probably is good for you. I probably should do more of that myself. Garrett, I'm going to assume you know what moleskin is. And maybe you're kidding, so. So I guess you're on your phone, Carol. Are you just listening, or can you see? If you can see, I'll pick Teddy up. Or maybe when you get home, you can pop on real quick, and I'll get Teddy for an appearance. Because he's just laying here being lazy right now. That rascal laid down on me last night and put me to sleep right in the middle of the Olympics. I'll blame him for it. I'm sure it wasn't my fault. I know I woke up sweating. He was hot, though. I mean, after a while, that boy gets warm. I'm really not laughing. Yeah, I am a little bit. But I understand. I've got a few of those battle wounds myself, and it still bothers me. I had cracked ribs. We used to have a volleyball team at work, and we had volleyball teams. We had softball teams for a while, but we had a co-ed volleyball team, and we were practicing one evening in somebody's house, in their backyard, and I stretched out for a dig to to hit the ball that got close to the ground. If you guys know what a dig is. Anyway, I was all stretched out. I was a lot leaner and quicker in those days. Oh, I didn't know about that, Carol. How's he doing? That's where you're walking back from. That pharmacy. Well, Carol, I've got to catch up on that. I'll have to look. Oh my God, they hurt. This young lady decided to go after the same ball I was going after. If only I was stretched out, one way, and she got me with her knee right in my ribs, and I heard them crack. And you talk about hurting. That hurt me. In fact, that still hurts me. I can still feel it sometimes. It's like scar tissue right along those ribs. I cracked. The doctor said I cracked 3 or 4. I can't remember. It's kind of in a diagonal line. And man, did that hurt. Yeah, Garrett, I don't know, buddy. You may have to do something about these mod fees. I can't keep paying double what everybody else is paying. And, Carol's got hospital bills now to pay, and there you are charging us to be. And I haven't talked to anybody else that has to do that. So what's the deal? How come you're the only one charging mod fees? Oh, Carol's paying double too? I thought I was the only one. Jiminy Christmas. Carol, you and I need to talk. Maybe it's time for a boycott. Oh, well, good point there, Garrett. But being left out's a hell of a lot cheaper than paying. I have to give that some serious thought. Carol, you and I need to figure out a way to, get our money back. So how's he doing, Carol? Is he home or is he still at the hospital? That's the first thing. He's probably not home yet, but I bet he's home in the next day or two, unless he has to go somewhere else for rehab. My wife was home, and she was either home the second day or the third day. They had her up and walking the day it started. Well, so much for being nice then. If that's good. Well, good, I guess. Is he able to get around a little bit? I've got that in my future. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. But my left knee is pretty messed up, and pretty much they're not going to fix it. They're not going to do anything to it until I get ready for a replacement, because it's, I'm down to the point where what's, throwing more money, good money after bad kind of thing, it seems like. At least that's sort of what the last orthopedic surgeon told me, or specialist. And he doesn't want to do that yet, so I'm working. I need to lose some more weight before he'll consider doing my knee. But he pretty much said that's the only thing he can do for it that's going to help me. Well, Brenda did. Brenda had both hers done, not at the same time, but individually within a few months. And it made all the difference in the world for her. I mean, she was struggling to walk, and had to retire early because of that. She really couldn't get around it much at work. She was on her feet constantly, for one thing, at work. She couldn't. She could sit at a counter and cut up food sometimes, but I mean, a lot of times it just wasn't possible. And so anyway, once she retired, we got them done. But it was for her, it was worthwhile. And the surgery was pretty quick, and she recovered pretty fast, and it was a good thing. But so we've had positive results of knee replacement so far. That's okay, Carol. Take your time. When you get back, maybe you'll have time to send us a note and catch us up on how he's doing. Like I said, I have an interest in it because my wife's had two, and both knees, and 2 or 3 here. I'm getting ready. I'm probably going to have one in the next year or so too. So my knees pretty weak, and any little twist or turn, I wear a brace if I'm doing much walking or doing anything on it much. I should be wearing it right now, but I don't have it on today. But it really is painful. What's really bothering me right now is not to bemoan everybody all my aches and pains, but is I've got a groin muscle pull or tear or something that just doesn't seem to want to heal up. And that's making it really hard for me to walk. Hard for me to do anything. I took some time off from the gym to see if it would heal a little bit, but I'm not sure if it has at all. I haven't used enough ice on it. I don't think that might help a little bit more. Not that that'll heal it, and when they looked at it they did my hip or our MRIs, they didn't see any damage to the hip bones or anything. So it's got to be muscle. So I got to figure out what's going on. My therapist and I've discussed it and are trying to loosen it up, but so far it's not. It's gotten worse, if anything. I know there's been people that have had to have knees done more than once, but I think they've gotten a lot better at it. I think the knee joints they're putting in are a lot better. I think Brenda's are titanium, so they're not real heavy. They're lightweight, and so far so good. She's now I'll admit she's not high climb to Everest or anything since she had them put in, but so far they're holding up. She's got some back issues too, so that doesn't help her much, but I'm hoping she gets feeling better. She's not felt well the last couple of days either, but she hasn't had the fever. And she hasn't had all the symptoms that I've had, so I'm hoping it's not. If it's the same thing, I hope it's not as bad. I have. Go back to losing track of people. I've not been on. I tell you, not been online for a week and a half or so, whatever it's been. Probably 2 weeks now. 2 weeks since my last show, and I've not been on much at all since then. I feel like I'm so far behind on everybody. What's going on. Like Carol, I haven't caught that. I haven't kept up with Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. I actually feel kind of bad about that. Well, hi there, Miss Red. And I'm sitting here drawing Kelly. What's going on in your part of Arizona today, Miss Kelly? Catch us up on all the news. While I pour a cup of Joe, another cup of Joe. It's hot. Yeah, well, that comes with Arizona. I'm afraid you can't much get out of that unless you move north. A friend of mine was based out of Phoenix for a while when he was out there with the wildlife service or department, and he moved north 50 or 60 miles. He just because he could get up to a higher elevation and get out of some of the heat. But I'm sure it's still hot there too. Can't remember the name of the town. He moved pretty much straight north along the interstate, but he got up a couple thousand feet higher and at least got out of some of the heat. I could probably look at a map and figure that out, but I don't even know if you're in Phoenix. I can't remember. Seems like you are. Or are you in Tempe? I don't know. I'm just sitting here running off the mouth. I need to shut up and let you tell me. Okay, so you are in that hot area. Yeah, you get up north to the canyon part of the state, and I know it snows in the wintertime, and just the altitude alone probably drops the temperature some, even in the summer, but I don't know how much these days. They used to say 1,000 foot of elevation usually dropped you 2 to 3 degrees, but I don't know if that's holds true or not. That's another place I've never been, but it's on my bucket list. I want to go to the canyon or see that part of Arizona. I've never been in Arizona. Well, I've been to the edge. Actually, I can't say that I've stepped in Arizona, so I have been there, but it was just at the bottom end of the state line, and we were in New Mexico when we walked. We went to the state line to. I remember catching a rattlesnake there, but I don't know why we went unless it was just to look down. Oh, I know why. We were able to. We had a mountain peak there. We could look down into the Arizona part and see a big, huge one of the big asteroid craters that you can see out there in Arizona because of the lack of vegetation, basically. And from that vantage point, we could see part of it. Don't remember which one it was or if it has a specific name. Probably does, but I think that's why we were there. My buddy was doing projects out there in the New Mexico side of the. I think they called that the Coronado National Forest, but it was mostly desert. The forest part of that was scrub shrub and low junipers and some grease mesquite and greasy. They call it greasy bush. No, that's not right. Maybe it is grease bush. That's kind of like northern New Mexico. I mean, it snows there too, and it just gets so much nicer. Love that part of New Mexico. As again, Philmont. I don't know about you, John. I'm hoping you're still here. I'm going to act like you are, but Philmont was a life changing thing for me. I think it opened my eyes to a lot of things. I got to see a lot of country that I might not have seen otherwise, and it was just I always marked that as a significant moment in my life. Yeah, they are. I mean, I assume Arizona's a lot like New Mexico in that regard. New Mexico is one of the most diverse states I've ever been in because of the elevation changes and you can go from northern Rocky Mountains to desert in the south. Although I'm not that's high desert to some degree, but I'm not sure what the altitude is. I think the altitude at Phoenix isn't it kind of high? I mean, it's not zero, not sea level. I don't think. Not to mention that they got all kinds of cool critters out there. I mean, we used to catch a lot of reptiles of various sorts, belly crawlers and four-leggers out there, and just uh, for East Tennessee boys, it was fun because there was so much out there. We used to go herping, as we called it, or they called it. I picked that term up from them, but we'd go out at night. I think I've told that before. We'd go out after dark or in the middle of the night with a couple of big coolers in the back of a truck, empty, and come back with them crawling full of snakes, usually, which they would record and do stuff like that. And some of them they kept, but most of them they turn loose. But it was you could find so much stuff out there. Like the roads are like a major. They divide the environment. They divide ecologically. They divide territories. So to cross a road is a pretty major thing. And during the day, the roads are usually too hot, or can be too hot for reptiles to cross. Plus, they're more active at night anyway. The snakes are. So we'd catch all kinds of stuff I'd never heard of. Ground nose snakes and shovel nose snakes and Texas shovel nose snakes and uh, just little. Most of them were small ground snakes that burrowed and that's why they had their names. They used their nose to burrow under the sand, so you'd never see them during the daytime. But they were always out at night, so that's when we would find them along the edges of the roads, and they'd be crossing from one side to the other, out hunting or whatever they were doing. They also picked up a lot of rattlesnakes that way. Several Crotalus, which is a diamondback, western diamondback, and black-tailed rattlesnakes, and there was a lot of different kinds of rattlesnakes in New Mexico. Prairie rattlesnakes. You avoid all nature. Reptiles are a big no for me. I don't really enjoy nature. Oh, Kelly, come on. You just need a guide to show you and talk to you about it. I need to come out there and show you around. Yeah, the scorpion. We never really did that much, but yeah, you guys that hunted for scorpions that way too. We used to catch these great big black scorpions they had in New Mexico that they call vinegaroons. And I never really looked that up to see what the true name is, but they actually gave off a scent of vinegar, and they didn't sting. Or at least they weren't venomous to people. In fact, I don't know if they even tried to sting people, but they gave off that vinegar scent, and that was their main protection. If something tried to bite down on them, they'd spray them basically with that vinegar. I'm sure it tasted worse than it smelled, but it really smelled kind of like vinegar. And they were big and black, and they looked dangerous. And I've seen them in a lot of movies since then. I think they use them a lot of times to be scary scorpions. But they really weren't all that scary. They were just big, much bigger. Most scorpions are this size, an inch or two long at the most. And when you go out west, they're under just about every rock. I swear we used to look for them, and it seems like almost every rock we flipped, there'd be some under there. Oh, somebody said I'm completely frightened to go outside right now. No, why? Because of what I've said? Don't make that so. That would hurt my feelings. We used to, you see it in cowboy movies, but shake your boots out because you can get scorpions. We'll get in your boots if you're out camping and that sort of thing. And actually, in the houses, we used to find them in houses fairly regularly. So now you can't go inside either, Kelly. And an interesting thing is we actually have a very similar, or maybe even the same scorpion back here, but they are extremely rare. I've only seen one or two, and they were in the Nashville area. I've never seen one up here, but they say they can be here. But they're very, very rare. Probably more in West Tennessee and maybe the Nashville Basin area. But I knew a guy found some in his basement, so they do exist. I assume he survived because scorpions are kind of like getting stung by a bee. It kind of depends on the person. If you're allergic to the venom, it's worse than if you're not. They do hurt, but most bees hurt. Some a lot worse than others. Well, I've not been stung. I've messed with them. I've never had one in my boot. I've never been stung, fortunately, but you want to avoid that stinger. Sting, sting, sting. Who said that? That was George Bush, wasn't it? The first George Bush. That's good, Kay. Was that out west or was that in South Carolina? Just out of curiosity. So, Kelly, what are you doing today? You have big plans? Yeah, see, so you do have them in the east. I mean, you probably have more of them in South Carolina than we do here. Did Kennedy This is for oh, I bet you did, John. I bet they were plentiful there. Where is that Air Force base? I don't know if I'm from. When you first said Davis, I thought you were going to say Texas, but for a pet K, that's interesting. Emperors are big, pretty good size too. That I'm sure they use those in movies also, if I'm not mistaken. And was he okay, Kelly, from being stung? Okay, Carol. Let me wake up the sleeper here. Come here, buddy. Carol wants to see you. Can I pick you up? Oh, come here. Oh, my goodness. No, hang on. Hang on. Say hi to Miss Carol. Come on, look up. Let him see your face. He's a sleepy boy, Carol. He's been napping. You gonna look up or not? Nope, you're not gonna look. Why have you gotten so camera shy? All right, get down. He's gonna go back to his bed. He's got a chair. You think as much publicity as you get, you be wanting to be on camera more. Mostly right now he's being lazy. He just wants to sleep, which he is a master of. I will say that he is very good at sleeping. He's been watching. I can turn him around, and he's in my old office chair. He's claimed it now as his bed, and when I'm downstairs, he's either sitting there with me, or when I go to the couch to get a change from this chair when it's hurting me, he wants to come over there. He gets excited when I go over there because he can waller me more, and he's more comfortable. So he comes over there and sprawls out. I can sit and on my couch is adjustable. It's like a lounge chair, and it's electric, so I can vary the foot height and the back angle infinitely, at least within boundaries. So I can adjust the foot up and down and the back up and down until I take the pressure off my hips where they hurt. So I have to go over once in a while and just get some relief. And if I sit there too long in one place, it hurts there too. So I come back over here. But that's part of Carol, I'm feeling so much better than I did last week. And really for the most of this week, I've been off key a bit. It was an ugly little weekend. I did not feel good at all. I felt really bad. I told others earlier that it was a strange ailment, and I seriously thought it might be COVID at first, but didn't have all the symptoms. I don't think it was. If it was, it came and went pretty quick. But I didn't have any respiratory issues, and I've got asthma. Maybe not as bad as a lot of people, but my breathing gets affected pretty easily. And in fact, this winter I've not had hardly any respiratory. I hadn't thought about that. Most winters I have at least the flu or a really bad, like what last year I had walking. A year before last I had walking pneumonia most of the winter, and this year I haven't had hardly anything like that. And this year I had no sickness, which I realize stomach sickness doesn't necessarily go with the COVID, but respiratory wise it does. And I had none of that, but I did have temperature spikes, although they never seemed to top 100. So it was kind of a strange thing, but then it finally broke Sunday night or so, or Monday. But it's taken me several days just to get feeling better. I've been pretty tired, and I just haven't felt like sitting up and being online much, which is a shame because I've got stuff I want to do. And I'm hoping to get started back. I'm hoping to go this week. I've ordered some stuff to. I finally got me some good. I think. Um, hang on just a minute. Hey, buddy. Hey, look outside. Look at the birds. Look. Yeah, he's cleaning it. He's fixing his hair. Got birds outside the window. He'd been watching. I was going to say that earlier. He's in his chair now. I can turn him, and he can watch the squirrels and the birds out here on the bird feeder. They like to do that. He likes to do that. So I wish he'd go get the squirrels. Honestly, they keep tearing down the feeders. Brenda bought a brand new feeder. She was hoping was be somewhat squirrel proof. It wasn't, and I forgot entirely where I was at. Oh, I finally bought some. I hope it's going to be some decent, good editing software that wasn't probably not quite as good as. I really would like to have had the Adobe editor. I have used some Adobe before, but I couldn't quite justify the cost right now, so I ended up getting something from the people that used to do Word, the other popular word processor. Microsoft Word was out in the other one, and that's what I've got. Corel. So we'll see. I'm hoping that once I take the tutorials and get better at that, I'll start putting out some more video, including going down to the time warp and doing some motorcycle stuff. I would really like to go there this Friday, Tuesday, if I can, to get started on that, but we will see. This is a tax-free weekend in Tennessee, and I've been looking at trying to get a new computer because my computer is not that old, but it's got some kind of issues, and I'm afraid when I really start trying to do a lot of editing, it may not work. We'll see. I may just need to clean it up, but I've only had it a year. Usually my computers last me a couple of years before they're completely out of date. At the speed things change these days, I realize it's probably already very antiquated, but so will a new one if I buy one as soon as I get it. So what else is going on? It's about 12 o'clock. I guess I need to find out who can hang around a little while longer, who needs to leave. I might stay on another half an hour. Or, everybody has something else they need to go do. I could shut it down here pretty soon. So you guys know me. I'll stay on as long as there's somebody here to talk to, pretty much. I do still want to get some folks to come online. I need to talk to a few people and talk them into, coming on with me and being on some. John, I'd love to get you on here one Saturday morning and talk to you. And Carol, the invitation is always open to get you on. Kay, Tina, anybody. You don't even have to come on and be on the whole time, just to come on for a little bit. Say hi, talk about things, get to know you. Yeah, Carol, I'm Olympics bear today because I'm watching the Olympics. I'm knee deep in the Olympic festivities, such as they are this year. I'm not sure whether they should have held them or not, but I do understand why they are. And I've certainly enjoyed the competition so far. I've gotten to see it. One nice thing about this age we live in and cable, and I know everybody says that, Kay, and you don't have to get on camera. I can bring you on just as a voice if you ever wanted to just come on and talk, and we can do it that way. I mean, that's how Chris was doing it. He didn't want to be on camera either at the time, so he came on just as a voice. So we can always turn the camera off and just turn the audio on. And I was talking about what? Hey, Dave, welcome back. Or maybe you've been here. Oh, what was I saying? And you too, Don. I'd love to get you on, or Will, or both of you sometime, or individually. Uh, you and Kaylee would be a fun Saturday morning. That would be interesting. Yeah, I was talking Olympics, wasn't I? I've always really enjoyed the Olympics. Like I said, I prefer the Winter Games. I've always, even though I've never done a lot of that stuff, I guess I've always wanted to do more. I used to ski some when I was able, and we used to have snow in this part of the world. Well, welcome back. Glad you made it back, Dave. Um, but I've always liked the Winter Games. I'm not sure entirely why, but I do. I like curling. Speed skating, I think, is exciting. Skiing, I didn't used to, but I really get into cross country skiing now too. At least watching it. But I like things like the biathlon, triathlon, the shooting, the ones that involve shooting sports. Um, don't get to see much of that. What I was going to say, oh, I know what I was going to say. That's one nice thing about this age of television and cable and the internet is there's a lot more available. When the Olympics, it used to be we were pretty much limited. If you were an Olympics fan, you're pretty much limited to whatever the network that was major network in this country was carrying, and that was pretty much it. ABC or CNBC or whoever. You pretty much got that and that only. 90% of the time, everything was, of course, greatly time delayed because unless it was in this country. And now you can pick up so much stuff. I've been able to watch some archery, which is not on very often. I think there's supposed to be some today. I've watched fencing, which I've learned a lot about this year because I've been able to watch so many rounds. The difference between foil and and epee, and of course sabers. I haven't got to see saber much, unless that's what's on today. But how they score points and how they do the matches is interesting. I've never had seen enough of it to really understand that. I've seen one air rifle match, which a kid from the United States won, but I'd like to see more of that. I don't even know, they used to shoot 22 round. They shoot 22 a lot for the target matches, the shooting part of the Olympics. I don't know if they do anymore, if it's all air rifle, but the air rifles they use are amazing. The but it I've gotten to see a lot. Of course, we're being retired. This is the first. This is the first Olympics I believe I've seen since I've been retired. Yeah, because 2020. Oh, that was last year. There wasn't anything. Yeah, because the last ones would have been 2018, I think, and I hadn't retired yet. That'd been the last Winter Games. But now I've got time. I can, especially being laid up right now. So I've been able to watch them just about anytime I wanted to. So I've seen some live events, a lot of taped events or rerun events, but I haven't really gotten online to catch as much stuff as I could, but I've been able to pick up a lot. I mean, just about any station that's got NBC affiliation this year has carried some part of the games. So I've gotten to see quite a bit of stuff. There's still a few things I haven't seen. Like I said, I've only seen one air rifle match. I would like to have seen more, and they may be over. I'm not sure. Um, I've seen some bicycling, which I didn't used to enjoy as much, and now I do. I'm looking for the velodrome events, where they race in the Circle Stadium arena, and I don't know. I got to look that up and see when that is. Yeah, I'm an archer too, John. I really like. I've always enjoyed archery shooting, and I used to shoot a lot. And I've never, like I said, I've never really been able to watch it much on the Olympics. And this year I've got to see quite a few matches, or got to see. They may be over too. I'm not sure yet. May have been some listed for today, and I just haven't found. I need to look for them here when I get off. But I think I can trace my love of archery back. I've always, since I was a kid, I mean, I had a bow. My first bow was purchased through S&H Green Stamps. If anybody else remembers Green Stamps, we got green stamps, when you bought groceries, and my mom put them in books, and she got all manners of things over the years from green stamps. And one of the things I got for my birthday one year was a bow and arrow set. It was just a fairly small fiberglass bow with some arrows it was my first true bow and arrow. That I tried to make some of my own back then, but I didn't know how to do that either. But I shot that bow and had it for years. Yeah, Carol remembers S&H Green Stamps. I think there was other kinds too at different places, but S&H Green Stamps seemed to be a little bit more popular back in this part of the country back then. Oh, that's interesting, Carol. Who did he, was that in college or otherwise? Because I've never seen that done anywhere except on, I think, maybe the Olympics. I may have seen some just competition, because I know they do that kind of thing in Europe a lot. They do all kinds of stuff that we don't do in that regard. But yeah, same here, Carol, on the Winter Games versus summer. I think that's partly why I like the Winter Games better. It's a different variety. I didn't used to really like the track and field events as much, although I've learned to enjoy them. Certain parts of it I did. Certain parts are so. And but now that I'm getting to see more and different events, I like the summer games even better. So, but just because it is what it is, the Olympics, I will probably continue to watch. I mean, it's only every 4 years, and that in itself to me makes it special, rare, more fun. Do they, Kay? I did not know that. I haven't seen the green stamp in a long time. I think my mother used to still have some books that had green stamps in them that were left over from back when, the grocery stores that she went to before they stopped giving them out. Well, that's cool, Carol. I didn't even know. That's fun. I'll have to look that up. I didn't know people in this country. I mean, I'm sure I knew people did it, but I didn't. I never thought about that. But just having a velodrome track is pretty amazing. Uh, to me, it's different, but to me, velodrome racing almost harkens back. Hang on just one moment, folks. That didn't change anything. I know I'm cutting my face off sometimes when I lean up. The velodrome track in itself, if nobody knows, it's a very steeply banked wooden track, or at least I think they're still wooden. To me, harkens back to an earlier age, at turn of the century, last century, and in the 1920s, one of a popular thing. People are going to race probably whatever they own, whatever will move, from horses down to chariots to, then we figured out how to race chuck wagons at rodeos to, cars and motorcycles and airplanes. And in the I'm not sure what year they started it, but in the 20s for a while, maybe teens, they used to do what was called board track racing, and they raced cars and they raced motorcycles on board tracks. I'll look that up, Carol. Thank you. I'll look that up too, Kay. Thank you. Let me write that down. Hang on, just bear with me here a minute while I write those names down. Bloomer Park. Is that pronounced D'Agostino? K? They used to do board track racing. What I was getting ready to say, the International Velodrome at Bloomer. Okay. Only 26 velodromes in North America. And that's the one your cousin's son races at? Well, that's the rabbit hole. That's the kind of rabbit hole I love to get into. I would only fix your right. No gears. D'Agostino. Okay. Yeah, the only thing motorized or powered or otherwise on these velodromes usually is what they call the pace bike or the pacer, and they get out. I don't know if they still do this for sure, but they would get out with this motorcycle, and that's how they would get started. And that thing would set a pace, and then they pull off with that, and the bicycles, are on their own. I think they still do it that way, but I'm not positive. Anyway, back to the board tracks for a minute. What was amazing, the velodromes are, I'm not sure how big they are, but they're not that large. I'm going to say, and I've never stood beside one, but I'm going to say you could easily fit it inside a basketball court type gymnasium. Okay, D'Agostino, like Langostino, as in the big shrimp. Maybe. Anyway, board track. So, of course, when cars came along and motorcycles came along, they were looking for different ways to race them. And there was flat track racing, of course, and on dirt tracks and things. But somebody came up with the idea of racing them inside on these huge wooden tracks that were built much like a velodrome. And what's amazing was they were built out of wood, all wood, and they were built out of boards laid one on top, one beside another one, like 2x4s laid against each other. And they were huge. I mean, I tried to calculate how much lumber might be in a board track. They made them up to a mile long, if I'm not mistaken. Some of the largest ones ever built were about a mile, which is a big track for something like that, made out of wood constructed. And the stands were up along the edges. And of course, they were right on the upper part of the track. And back then, there were little or no barriers between the fans and the motorcycles, or cars, which is pretty much what brought board track racing to an end. They had several really bad accidents where the vehicles got off the track and into the crowd and killed a bunch of bystanders as well as the riders or drivers. And I mean, it was dangerous. There's no two ways around it. And the riders, if they fell off and had a crash on the track, were subject to get filled up with really big splinters and pieces of wood because it would break off, I guess, from the impact of the motorcycles, but you wouldn't have to worry about that so much in cars. But motorcycles were probably more of that maybe than cars did. But it was kind of like racing on a super speedway. Like if you're familiar with Bristol NASCAR, it's pretty much inside a bowl. And this was a lot like that. In fact, they'd be very similar in length to something like that's a half-mile track at Bristol, or a 5/8 mile, which is slightly over half. But some of these things were, like I said, a mile long. And but it all went out of favor and style when they had a few big crashes and killed some folks. So But look at board track racing someday if you know something interesting, because there's very, very few recorded films on board track racing. In fact, there's not a lot of information period out there, even though it was a big deal for a while. And I know a guy that's working on a book right now about board track racing, so I'm hoping he comes up with some really good stuff. I'm sure he will. He's good at what he does. Let's see. The IVBP was paid for by private. I'll assume that's the International Velodrome that you mentioned. Built by volunteers, was given to the city of Rochester Hills, nonprofit maintained by the Community Foundation of Greater Rochester. Well, that's cool. That's one way to get it done. The International Velodrome at Bloomer Park. I'm going to write that down too and get the whole. At, not of. Thank you, Carol. I will look that up. Oh, you had one in Indianapolis too. What, the board track? Back up here a minute, Dave. Are you talking board track now, or are you talking velodrome? Because I think there was a board track in Indianapolis, indeed. They were scattered around the country, and they would build them up and draw. I've often wondered just how long it took them to do that. I mean, that's a lot of lumber. You think about how much lumber it takes to lay down side by side, 2 inches at a time, to get a track that was 50 to 100 feet wide in places, because they were big. Some of them were really big. And then to lay it around the track a half mile or a mile long is just, to me, is amazing. The structure on the outside looked a lot like a wooden roller coaster. That's interesting, Dave. I think they had I'm almost sure they may have had a board track in Indianapolis at one time. I could be wrong about that. Like I said, I started looking into that. I actually thought about writing a book about it myself or working on it, because there was just so little information out there, and didn't really have the resources. I mean, I could have gotten busy and done it. That's another one of those things I didn't do that I wish I had. Now a guy is doing it, but he's written a couple of other books about motorcycle history and racing. He's got the sources, so I'm sure he'll do a better job, but he's working on it. I'm not sure when it's supposed to be released. I need to check on that and see, because I want to get a copy. But there's very few films. I think I was going to say that. There's very few films about motorcycle board track racing. In fact, I only know one or two that are you can actually watch and see anything. And at least one of those was filmed by, I believe, a Dutch filmmaker who came over here for some races because he was wanting to see them, and he filmed them and kept, and they've managed to, be around this long, and you can kind of get an idea of the speed and stuff they're racing. But it was amazing. I mean, it was something. Part of me would love to have seen it, and part of me was, glad I didn't in some ways. Yeah, Carol, board track racing was it was really big in its day, but it didn't last too long. And I've always heard and read the danger factors, what really cut it out. But it was huge as far as motorcycle manufacturers were concerned, especially Harley Davidson and the Indian Motorcycle Company in this country. They were a huge rivalry, and in the motorcycle world, and they battled it out on board tracks for years to see who was best and fastest. That's just like the old NASCAR saying, race it on Sunday, sell it on Monday, or win on Sunday, sell it on Monday, whatever it was. With NASCAR and, stock car racing, the idea always was, and I guess there's some truth in it, that, if a Plymouth Charger won this weekend in NASCAR, then that Mondays after that, a lot of times were good for sales for, Plymouth Chargers. But in motorcycle racing at one time was very similar. And another thing, a lot of people don't know. Hey there, Cherie, you're back. I'm waxing eloquent about motorcycle racing at the moment. Another thing a lot of people don't know is until recently, there was basically only one motorcycle company in the United States, and that was Harley Davidson. And they almost went out of business in the late 70s, early 80s. They were bought out by the, I want to say IBM. That's not right. The people that do bowling alleys and pool tables. That'll come to me in a minute. Somebody else remembers who I'm talking about. You can. Yeah, Cherie, you know me. I'm long-winded and get to talking. As long as people show up and want to hang around, I'll talk about something. Which is probably because I'm probably abusing my time online, but as you folks have told me, AMF. Thank you, John. Well, AMF just about ran Harley in the ground. I mean, they were really terrible back then. Kay, you were very close. It is AMF, but you had the letters right. You just had them out of order. So they finally sold Harley off, and in fact, they sold it to the original Davidson family, and I guess the workers of Harley Davidson, and they have turned them around and changed them back. They're kind of always what they were, but the quality is much, much better. And if you like Harleys, they're worth having today. That in the 70s, you couldn't have given me one. I really don't want one today, but back in that day, they were terrible. And but anyway, there used to be over 100, and there were over 100 motorcycle manufacturers in this country at the early part of the 19th century, 20th century, 1900s. Harley and Indian were just two of them. They ended up being the two that survived the longest. Indian went out of business in 1953. Harley hung in there and still around. Now Indian has made a comeback finally. They tried for years to bring Indians back and could never quite get there, but they're actually doing much better now and have got some really good models that are selling and racing again and doing things like that. But anyway, there were over 100 different kinds of motorcycles out there. Most of them you'll never have heard of. Some you may have heard of for other reasons, but most of them didn't survive the Great Depression. Is kind of what happened. If they weren't already out of business, the Depression did them in. Well, Cherie, I have felt good enough to do that, and I'll wind down here just in a little bit, and I'll probably be, as we used to say, killed for a while. But I'm doing okay. I feel a week ago I couldn't sit here 5 minutes probably, but today, the last couple of days, I have felt much better. Okay, do you know if it was old or new? There are more of them on the road today, and not just antiques. So they're back out there. The rivalry between the two has grown somewhat. Flat track racing is still alive and fairly well in this country, and the rivalry between Harley and Indian has picked back up in flat track racing. And in fact, the last few years, Indian has been kind of dominant. They've really come back in a storm. Harley's been scrambling to catch up again, which is kind of interesting. They kind of had it all to themselves for a long time. Oh, that's cool, Kay. I've seen a few of those. There's a good book out there about, and I can't remember the name of it, and I don't believe I have it. I think my buddy Phil had it, maybe. But it's all about restoring the Indian. A guy who took that on, he wasn't really a motorcycle guy. can't remember what he did. Seems like he was an English teacher or something in school, but I don't know how, something came along and he ended up with this box of Indian parts. So he decided to rebuild it and restore it. And he did and got it running. And he talks a lot about, at that time, going on the chase for parts, trying to find parts for like a 48 or 49 Indian. I can't remember which one it was. Oh, John, I know those companies well. Bull Tacos and CZ's both. In fact, there's a CZ. Was it a dirt bike or a street bike CZ 250? Because I know where there's I believe it's a 250 CZ street bike sitting right now today. In fact, it's in the window of the Time Warp tea room, the place I've talked about filming and doing some video and sorry, I was clicking my nails there. Live streaming from. There's one sitting in the window there. Yeah, most of them I saw were dirt bikes too. This one I'm talking about is the only street bike, I believe, CZ street bike I've ever seen. Now they made them and they brought them over, but you didn't see a lot of them. Squirrels are getting on my bird feed. And of course, Bull Tacos. I knew another guy that used to race Bull Tacos. He raced those flat track for a while. But most Bull Tacos I saw growing up were dirt bikes. But both of those names are names I know well. And Mako, do you remember Mako, John? And Husqvarna, which I had one of. Then one of my favorite little brands that doesn't exist anymore that I just always liked for some reason was Odaka. They were actually built here. They got their parts out of Japan, I think, but they were built somewhere out in Oregon or Washington. And there was a guy in my hometown that had a little shop that sold Odakas. They were all smaller bikes, 100s and 125s, dirt motocross bikes, pretty much. Butter knife and vice grips. That's good. I like that. They were hell bent. I mean, Bull Tacos were, I guess, in different ways, were fast, and most of that stuff was built to take it, especially the European stuff back then. And the Europeans sort of invented motocross and that sort of thing. So they had the motorcycles for it before the Japanese started building dirt bikes and things to compete. And for a long time, they were dominant even after the Japanese started building them. Took them a while to figure it out. Then once they did, they just outran them. Hondas and Yamahas and Suzuki's, Kawasaki's, they all pretty much took that market and built some amazing dirt bikes afterwards. But I can remember when Husqvarna's and Bull Tacos and CZ's and Mako's, Montesas, that Montesas and Bull Tacos were both Spanish bikes. Yeah, Honda Elsinores came out, and that they were probably, I'm going to say, my memory says they were really the first really competitive Japanese dirt bike, and they were two-stroke, and which Honda didn't build back then much. They didn't. I think it was the only two-stroke, maybe a scooter or two they had that they sold here that was two-stroke, because Honda was always kind of known for building four-strokes, but their Elsinores were two-stroke, and the Elsinores were hell for leather too. They were good. They were fast and lightweight. And Miss Dawn is back. Maybe you got the grandkids with you. Yeah, I remember when Elsinores first came out. They came out with a 125, and all the bike magazines were just going nuts over them. And I can remember reading the reviews and things on them back then. And the bike magazines that I collected at the time, things like Cycle. Well, Cycle was one of my favorites when it was out, and Cycle World, and uh, two or three other ones that I can't even remember the names of anymore. Yep, that'd be about right. You know, that's also when Kawasaki came out. I'm not sure if it was 93 or 73 or 4. I don't think it was late 72. I guess it might be. You know, they came out with the 901Z, their first big four-stroke. And it was just at that time, most of the magazines referred to it as the King motorcycle because it was big, it was fast, it did everything pretty much right for a big Japanese. I don't know if you call it a sport bike. They didn't really build sport bikes back then, but they were the other hot ticket. I can remember when they came on the scene. They also kind of like when the Honda 754 came out in '68 or '9. You know, that was they just set the world on its head. You know, and then Kawasaki came along with their Z1 901Z or Z901, whatever you want to call it, and first KZ, and flipped it over again. And they were wicked for their day. They were big and fast, and like I said, they handled halfway decent. Still driving, okay. Texas, everything's far apart in Texas. That's the problem with Texas being so big. Yeah, it was. Of course, before that, Kawasaki came out with the 500 triple two-stroke that was just like lightning when it first came out. They were wicked fast, but they couldn't handle. You hit a corner. They were what we called a wobble goblin. They were pretty good in a straight line, but you try to throw it into a corner at the speeds it would attain, you were in trouble. Usually, they didn't handle nearly as well as they went fast. And they ended up having the 500 triple and the 750 triple, and for a little while they sold a 250/350 triple. I've seen both. I think the 350 was more common than the 500 was. In that day and time, I had a Suzuki Twin, a 250 Hustler. They called it 6-speed. Was pretty fast, but not nearly as fast as those things were. That's the kind of stuff I sort of grew up reading about and jonesing for to some degree. I never really wanted a Honda 754, but I really thought I'd like to have had one of the big Kawasaki's because I thought they were really cool. I liked them a lot. I rode that 250. I took it to Florida and rode it. That was my primary transportation. The first year I lived down there, and the second year I left it at home and brought down a car for a while, which I probably shouldn't have done. I mean, I probably would have rather kept the bike, but the guy I was rooming with didn't go back down, or one of the guys I was rooming with didn't go back down. He was from my hometown too, so that he had a car, so that kind of cut me out. And in the end, the car was probably a little bit more reliable because it rained and stuff like that a lot in Florida. Didn't have to worry about it getting cold, but Florida sun baked it out and it faded the top of my gas tank. I never had a cover for it. I hated that part. But it was a fun motorcycle. Did you race dirt bikes, John? Only time I ever raced was I had a 390 Husky for a while that I rode in the dirt, and I took it to a local track. In fact, down around Dawn's Country, I believe, was where the first place. Well, now let me take that back. I started to say we were raced at Mont Eagle Mountain, but it might have been Sparta, Tennessee. And I raced one time. Was the only guy in my class because I had a 390 and there wasn't any other open bike. Back then, that was considered an open bike, open class for 500s and such. So they had a 125 class back then and a 250 class and an open class, which there weren't any other ones at that time at that track. So I was the only one that raced in my class, and I was slow, but I still got a trophy because I was the only one out there. That was the only time I ever raced. That killed my knees. I'll never forget that. I should have worked at it harder, but it was fun while it lasted. I didn't really have any friends that grew up racing when I was in high school, but I had several that raced, later in life that I went with to tracks and went to just go watch. I never worked like pits or anything like that for anybody in particular and on motorcycles. I'll never forget the first time I went to a major road race, though. That was at Talladega Speedway in Alabama. And that was the year that Honda introduced their Interceptor 750s. And I was absolutely fascinated and blown away by those motorcycles and watching them wrench on them. The mechanics for that at that time, almost all the Honda mechanics were straight out of Japan, technicians directly from Honda. And just to watch them tear a bike apart between, race heats and put it back together was just, wow. I just thought that was really something else. And they had trucks, full of mechanics and machinery and tools to fix them and keep them running. I remember there was somebody had a truck there that literally had a machine shop inside of the trailer. That just blew me away. That hooked me on road racing at that time, for sure. I was always actually more interested in road racing myself than I was in dirt racing back then. Most of my road racing was done out in the roads around my house and neighborhood and countryside, but I wanted to. That was just another one. But nobody did that in my part of the country. There were a few motocross tracks and, people raced dirt bikes, but nobody raced street course type motorcycles. I can remember waiting. Motorcycle races in Daytona were always at the first part of March. And I can remember waiting until June or July to get my magazines in that actually had the coverage for those months for the races that had been over for, 3 or 4 months. Of course, today we get that all, instantaneously. Okay, folks, it is 12:34. I think I'm going to, I hate to shut down right after Cherie got here, but I think I'm going to start calling it quits here or start winding down. Within the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to cut off. My hip's getting a little bit sore. I've actually not had anything to eat this morning. I probably ought to have a bite of lunch here in a bit. And, not to mention cutting everybody else loose so they can go about having fun for the rest of their day. But it has been a pleasure once again to talk to everybody. I'm glad you guys made it. I'm glad I made it back today. I really apologize for not being here last week. I say that like it's important to folks, but it's important to me. And I always enjoy conversation. And even though I feel like I suck most of the air out of the room, I like to hear the feedback or read the feedback in the chat and try to play off of that as much as I can. But I'll be back here next Saturday morning, I'm pretty sure, if nothing happens. And as I usually say, if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. And how many people know what that really means? I wonder. For many years, I thought I do need to eat, Kay. I need to eat so I can take some medicine. In fact, good Lord dwelling in the creek don't rise is another old saying from this part of the country. But the creek that rose didn't have water in it. The creek that actually referred to were the Creek Indians. So if the Creek Indians didn't rise up and battle, good for you, Tina. So if they didn't fight, they didn't raise up to go to war against the white settlers, then you could do something else. So if the good Lord dwelling in the creek don't rise actually means that. And I didn't know that growing up. I thought it was the creek. I thought they meant if it don't flood, we'll be there. I was wrong. That's one thing about living to be at least 64. You learn a few things if you pay attention. I've been trying to pay attention most of my life, so I have picked up a few things. I sure don't know it all. There's still a lot out there. It was a good day. I've enjoyed myself. I'm glad to be, like I said, I'm glad to be back. I missed everybody last week. It was hard for me to even get online and say I can't be here because I really tried to be here, and I just couldn't. In fact, I was right in the middle of one of those uncontrollable shaking spells, shiver spells when I should have been online. So, it was definitely a no-go. And but I'm better now, so things are looking up, and I will be back in touch, and I'll get have something out for next year. Probably you need to pay attention. That's true, Tina. If you don't pay attention, you're not gonna pick up what you're putting down out there. So, Andy Griffith said, "I'm cutting, but you ain't bleeding." He said that to Opie, which meant he wasn't picking up what he wasn't listening. He wasn't paying attention. So, I try to pay attention. And for the most part, I have most of my life. There's been spells, but mostly I have. Okay. Tuesday's 12:38, folks. I'm going to say goodbye and sign off. Thank you all for being here. Love everybody. I hope everybody has a good rest of their weekend. I hope everybody that's sick gets well. I know there's a lot of prayers going around for different folks. Like I said, Steve World has either got COVID or is under COVID protocol. I think Corey Meets World does have COVID. So good luck to all of them. And yeah, okay, you got to be careful doing that. I have to watch that too sometimes. But anyway, take care. Everybody take care of yourself. And I'm probably finally back to seeing people online again this weekend. So have a great day, everybody. So long.